The Israeli-Palestinian conflict is a complex and deeply rooted issue with a long and troubled history. The conflict is centered around the control and governance of a relatively small piece of land in the Middle East that both Israelis and Palestinians claim as their rightful homeland. For Jews, the land holds deep religious and historical significance, regarded as the ancient land of Israel. For Palestinians, it represents their ancestral home, where they have lived for generations. The conflict is further complicated by the presence of religious sites sacred to both Judaism and Islam. The roots of the conflict can be traced back to the late 19th century, with the rise of both Zionism, a movement advocating for a Jewish state in Palestine, and Arab nationalism in the region. As Jewish immigration to Palestine increased, tensions with the Arab population grew, leading to outbreaks of violence. The British, who gained control of Palestine after World War I, struggled to manage the competing claims and aspirations of the Jewish and Arab communities. The Holocaust, during which 6 million Jews were murdered by Nazi Germany, further fueled the Zionist movement and strengthened international support for the creation of a Jewish state. In 1947, the United Nations proposed a partition plan to divide Palestine into 2 states, one Jewish and one Arab, with Jerusalem under international control. The plan was accepted by Jewish leaders but rejected by Arab leaders, and the region descended into violence. In 1948, Israel declared independence, leading to a war with neighboring Arab states. The war resulted in Israel's victory and the displacement of hundreds of thousands of Palestinians, an event known as the Nakba, or catastrophe in Arabic. The conflict continued through the decades that followed, marked by wars, uprisings, and failed peace negotiations. The Six-Day War in 1967 resulted in Israel's capture of the West Bank, Gaza Strip, and East Jerusalem. The Palestinian Liberation Organization, founded in 1964, emerged as a key player advocating for Palestinian self-determination. The 1947 UN Partition Plan, officially known as Resolution 181, was a pivotal moment in the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. The plan proposed a division of Palestine into 2 states, one Jewish and one Arab, with Jerusalem designated as a corpus separatum, or a separate entity under international control. The Jewish Agency, representing Zionist leadership, accepted the partition plan, albeit with reservations. However, the Arab Higher Committee, representing the Palestinian Arabs, vehemently rejected the plan. The rejection of the partition plan by the Arab leadership was driven by several factors. First, many Arabs viewed the plan as inherently unfair, as it awarded a larger portion of land to the Jewish minority, who at the time constituted about 1/3 of the population. Second, the proposed division separated areas with significant Arab populations from the proposed Arab state, raising concerns about the future of these communities. Third, the plan was seen as a continuation of British colonialism and a betrayal of Arab self-determination. The Arab leadership's rejection of the partition plan had significant consequences. It contributed to the outbreak of the 1948 Arab-Israeli War, as Arab armies from neighboring states joined the conflict. The war resulted in a decisive victory for Israel, which expanded its territory beyond the borders outlined in the partition plan. The war also resulted in the displacement of hundreds of thousands of Palestinians who fled or were expelled from their homes. The rejection of the partition plan remains a subject of debate and controversy. Some argue that it was a missed opportunity for a peaceful resolution, while others contend that the plan was inherently flawed and unsustainable. Regardless of one's perspective, the rejection of the partition plan had a profound impact on the course of the Israeli-Palestinian conflict, shaping the political landscape and leaving a legacy of displacement and resentment. The Israeli-Palestinian conflict has been characterized by cycles of violence and retaliation, often involving non-state actors and militant groups. Throughout the conflict, certain Arab states have been accused of supporting Palestinian militant groups, providing them with financial, military, and logistical support. This support has taken various forms, ranging from direct funding and arms supplies to the provision of safe havens and training facilities. One of the most prominent examples of Arab state support for Palestinian militant groups is the relationship between the Palestine Liberation Organization and Arab countries like Egypt, Syria, and Libya. In the 1960s and 1970s, the PLO, under the leadership of Yasser Arafat, received substantial support from these countries, allowing it to establish military training camps and launch attacks against Israel. This support was often driven by a combination of pan-Arab solidarity, a desire to challenge Israel's regional dominance, and domestic political considerations. The support provided by some Arab states to Palestinian militant groups has been a source of significant controversy. Critics argue that such support has fueled the cycle of violence, undermined peace efforts, and contributed to the suffering of both Israelis and Palestinians. They contend that these states have a responsibility to use their influence to promote dialogue and reconciliation, rather than supporting armed struggle. However, some argue that the support provided to Palestinian militant groups should be understood in the context of the broader Israeli-Palestinian conflict and the perceived lack of progress in achieving a just and lasting peace. They argue that these groups emerged as a response to Israeli occupation and the displacement of Palestinians, and that their actions should be seen as a legitimate form of resistance against oppression. Section 4. Rhetoric and Escalation, the Power of Words. The Israeli-Palestinian conflict is not only a physical clash, but also a war of words, where rhetoric and narratives play a powerful role in shaping perceptions and fueling tensions. Throughout the conflict, political leaders, religious figures, and media outlets on both sides have often employed inflammatory language, demonizing the other and perpetuating stereotypes. This rhetoric has contributed to a climate of mistrust, fear, and hostility, making it more difficult to find common ground and achieve a peaceful resolution. One of the most common themes in the rhetoric surrounding the conflict is the dehumanization of the other. Palestinians are often portrayed in Israeli media and political discourse as terrorists, extremists, or a demographic threat, while Israelis are often depicted in Palestinian media and rhetoric as occupiers, aggressors, or European colonialists. Such dehumanizing language serves to create a sense of us versus them, where the other is seen as inherently different, dangerous, and undeserving of empathy or understanding. Another recurring theme is the use of religious language to justify violence or territorial claims. Some religious leaders and extremists on both sides have invoked religious texts or interpretations to claim divine right to the land or to delegitimize the other's claim. This use of religion to fuel the conflict has not only deepened divisions between Israelis and Palestinians, but has also created tensions within their respective societies, as more moderate voices struggle to be heard amidst the clamor of extremism. The media, both traditional and social, has also played a significant role in shaping perceptions and influencing public opinion. News coverage, particularly during times of heightened tension or violence, can often be biased or sensationalized, reinforcing existing stereotypes and fueling anger and resentment. Social media platforms, while providing a space for alternative voices, have also become breeding grounds for hate speech, misinformation, and incitement to violence. Section 5. Missed opportunities, the rejection of peace initiatives. The Israeli-Palestinian conflict has been marked by numerous attempts to negotiate a peaceful settlement, yet time and again, these efforts have faltered, leaving a trail of broken promises and shattered hopes. Both sides have at times rejected or failed to capitalize on opportunities for peace, often due to a combination of mistrust, intransigence, and the influence of hardline elements within their respective societies. This pattern of missed opportunities has contributed to the perpetuation of the conflict, making it increasingly difficult to bridge the divides and achieve a just and lasting resolution. One of the most significant missed opportunities was the failure to build on the momentum created by the Oslo Accords, signed in 1993 and 1995. The Accords, which were hailed as a historic breakthrough, established a framework for interim Palestinian self-governance in parts of the West Bank and Gaza Strip, while deferring negotiations on the most contentious issues, such as Jerusalem, settlements, refugees, and borders, to a later stage. However, the Oslo process ultimately unraveled due to a combination of factors, including continued violence, Israeli settlement expansion, Palestinian terrorism, and a lack of trust between the leadership on both sides. Another missed opportunity was the Camp David Summit in 2000, hosted by U.S. President Bill Clinton. The summit brought together Israeli Prime Minister Ehud Barak and PLO Chairman Yasser Arafat in an attempt to reach a final status agreement. While the summit failed to produce an agreement, it did witness significant concessions offered by both sides, suggesting that a breakthrough might have been possible with greater flexibility and a willingness to compromise. The 2002 Arab Peace Initiative, endorsed by the Arab League, represented another significant opportunity for peace. The initiative offered Israel full normalization of relations with Arab states in exchange for a full withdrawal from territories occupied in 1967, a just solution to the Palestinian refugee issue, and the establishment of an independent Palestinian state with East Jerusalem as its capital. However, the initiative was rejected by the Israeli government at the time, which argued that it did not adequately address Israel's security concerns.